The director did such a great job, the writing, taking you down this slow drip of like, okay, so like that doubt, you start to feel it as you go down through the movie. And then at the end, you're like, okay, so who's the hero?
Right. Well, I mean, like as you were talking about that, I was thinking, you mentioned earlier, like, why didn't they vet this guy? Like, it seems like the FBI would do that. Well, it's the same reason that the audience didn't vet him. So, like, as we're watching it,
that's fair.
Like, we just watched and some guy comes forward and says, hey, I'm here to expose corruption. We assume he's Tom Cruise in The Firm, right? Yeah. We assume, oh, he's Danny Ocean. He must be there. Like, again, there must be nothing wrong with this person because
no one just makes that up.
Yeah, the big corruption is over there always. And if somebody's pointing out corruption, it's like the holiness of the. It's a perversion of the holiness of the victim.
Mark, I got to ask you, why are you doing this?
Because things are going on I don't approve of. I'm a biochemist, a technical guy, and they pull me into the business side, and suddenly I find out all these things are going on that are illegal. If I want to grow with ADM, I got to learn the business side, and so suddenly I'm lying to people. They're making me lie to people. I lie to you. I feel real bad about that. I'm trying to do the right thing here.
Oh, Mark, do you think you'd be willing to go a few steps further in helping us?
What does that mean?
Would you be willing to wear a wire? We don't have any other sources at this time. We need your help.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Watch Well podcast. I am Parker, your host, and today Nick is not with me, but I've got a special guest. And before we get to that, I want to talk to you about the Dangerous Friends Conference happening in Monclova, Ohio. Joint speakers Rosaria Butterfield, Steve Deese, Jamie Bambrick, Seth Gruber, Michael Foster, John Roseman, and Stephen Whitlow. Get your tickets at dangerousfriends25.com and use code WatchWell25. One word, 2 capital W's for $25 off. Join us March 13th and 14th in Monclova, Ohio. Come hang out with me, talk movies, and make some more dangerous friends. So the movie we're reviewing today is called The Informant, and I had to bring in the big guns to help me with this one since Nick's gone. So we have Wade Stotz on with us today. Wade, thanks for joining us.
So
and if you could tell the viewers, I doubt there's people out there that don't know who you are, but if in the small percentage chance they don't know who you are, tell everybody where they can find you and a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, man, I'm the host of The Wade Show with Wade. I do monologue videos, typically about the news or about politics, and we talk about just kind of what's going on. And I also do a podcast. I'm with Canon Press, so we do a podcast over on Canon Plus. It's the Wadecast with Wade. I'm nothing if not a self-promoter, so I put my name and everything as many times as possible.
That's awesome, man. That's so cool. Okay, so I have to ask. So we usually let our guests, the viewers that have watched us, more than a few times, they've seen us bring guests on. They know that we have the guests pick the movie. So I'm interested to know why you picked this movie.
Yeah, so I originally watched it because I was interested in Steven Soderbergh. So I like the director. I think he's a smart guy. I'm interested in his filmmaking style, and he's done everything from like Ocean's 11 to shooting a movie on an iPhone. I think he's done 2 of those. So he's just an interesting guy to me, and I figured I would watch through a bunch of his stuff. And so I originally watched it and really enjoyed it. There were things about it, and we'll get into it, I guess, more, but there were things about it that reminded me of some of his other stuff. Kind of the one guy against a large corrupt organization. But there were the departures from that style, I think, were the thing that really made it stick out and was something that you don't see often in that type of movie. So it was at least enough of an interesting. It's not maybe the most. It's a 2009 movie with Matt Damon, a low budget movie about ADM and price fixing in the lysine industry. Is not on the tip of everyone's tongue right now, but it should be. It should be. It's a great movie.
I mean, I hadn't seen it before. You brought it up, and I watched it. I actually watched it this morning. Took some notes, and I actually really enjoyed it. So I've seen the cover of this movie, like how the whole impressions kind of thing as you know, things are scrolling through your feed or whatever, you're scrolling through Netflix or Amazon Prime or whatever, and I've seen this before, but I've never actually like clicked on it to watch it because I didn't know anything about it.
Right.
And to your point about it being about lysine, you know, and it's interesting how they brought a little bit of that comedic feel to it.
Totally.
You know, which is very much Soderbergh, you know, in his kind of style, because the content is really boring.
Sure. Yeah.
But they did a good job to keep you engaged despite that.
Yeah. Well, and like, regardless of the actual content of the corruption, the kind of intrigue of, you know, so-and-so is price fixing X. And so like the guy working with the FBI. And so that kind of builds in makes it feel like a suspense kind of movie.
Right.
It also, the music is kind of this like 60s heist thriller music. So it's funny that it is an ADM movie, a movie about ADM, and has this, Steve McQueen, score to it, which is very fun.
Yeah, and it was like very mysterious.
Yeah,
but it is. But when I say boring, I don't mean the relationship between, you know, our main character ADM and then the FBI. You know, these different, you know, entities. Yeah. I just meant like it being ultimately about like a chemist. You know, and he's, you know, making lysine out of corn.
Right.
And then it kind of starts there, because that's how it opens up in our opening scenes, is that monologue about the orange juice and the pancake syrup.
Right.
Biodegradable trash bags, you know.
Yeah.
And so they kind of put that out in front of you, and then from there they keep you with, well, who's really the bad guy? And that's what hooked me. It was like, oh man, who is, like, is he really, you know, telling the truth? Is he not? And so I'm sure we'll get into that here shortly too. But yeah, just the beginning of the movie. What were your thoughts going into that with that opening monologue? Hey guys, real quick, taking a break from the episode, I wanted to update you on something. So we've got our new merch site up and running. Finally, it's been a labor of love. We've got designs back there for hats, hoodies, t-shirts, all kinds of stuff. We've got a blanket back there so that you can grab the person you most enjoy watching films with. You can cuddle up under the Watch Well blanket. You can watch well together with some popcorn. Head on over to vindicatedproductions.com. Check out the new Watch Well site. Buy some merch. Support the podcast so that we can keep bringing you guys really, really good content to ultimately combat the passive consumption of entertainment and bring a more complete worldview to everybody that enjoys movies. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. All right, now back to the episode.
Yeah, the monologue, the narration as a whole is really an interesting piece of this movie because at some level you feel like as a movie person, as a person who's like used to absorbing stories that way, used to the narrator enlightening you about what's going on in his head, and at some level it is. I mean, at some level it's kind of this. That's the way people think, is sort of like, oh, they have little monologues going on in their head that are not related to this thing. Oh, I'm not thinking about this situation right now. So it's like this stuff that doesn't give you, even by the end of the movie, the central character is still kind of a mystery to you, even though he's been talking to you directly the entire time. And so at the beginning, you kind of don't know exactly, you're kind of trying to get your bearings, and you don't know at the time that you're hearing this guy who does that. He just narrates things in a way that's actual, like more stream of consciousness, which again adds to the comedy of stuff. So he just has these weird little forays into other things, and so like weird things that don't have anything to do with what's going on. And then sometimes you get insight that he's not meaning to give you. So like his reflections on, again later on we'll talk about it, but like The Firm, when he's talking about like everything they did to me, they did to Tom Cruise, you know, like all that kind of stuff. You're learning how he sees himself in this whole situation, and how deluded he may or may not be.
Right. So let's jump to. Do you have a favorite scene?
Oh man, that's tough. My favorite moment. It's couched in the middle of a scene, and and if people, I don't know how many of the audience members have seen the movie or not, but at the center of this movie is like the question of how reliable is this guy? Why is he doing this? And is he what's his real motivation? And it's Matt Damon, and he's wearing this, like, the whole time he's wearing this terrible wig. You know that, and that's kind of nobody acknowledges it, but he's wearing this terrible wig. And then at one point, a few of his big lies have been exposed. At one point, he's sitting in his car about to pretend to have been kidnapped. And what he does is he like makes his wig, he like makes it a little askew so it looks like somebody messed with him. He rips his own shirt sleeve, messes with his wig, and that and that moment is a physical representation of who that guy is. It's like he just shakes on the wig. And I learned later that Steven Soderbergh, when he was talking to Matt Damon, they were talking about something else before some scene, and Matt Damon just like adjusted the wig, and Steven Soderbergh said, like, you have to do that in the movie. And that's awesome. So they had to open up the script and like find the perfect spot for that visual to land. And I'd love to have been a part of that conversation, because I'm sure that there are lots of great moments where he could have adjusted the wig. But yeah, that dropping that in again, a physical, like this, it tells you something about who this guy is. Anyway, I think that's, if not my favorite scene, my favorite like 3 seconds.
Yeah. And then he like runs in and he tells his wife that he was kidnapped.
Yes.
The whole thing.
They abducted me.
Is that the first major scene where us as the viewer click and say, okay, this guy's like not really reliable? That's a great question. Is that the first one?
Yeah, because it's a good question because it's so gradual.
It is
where he starts lying. So when you start learning about the lies, the first big one is that he made up the whole mole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So the I don't know how much summary we need to do, but at the beginning of the movie, the whole thing kind of surrounds this. That's why this guy has to call the FBI, is because he needs to expose ADM for price fixing, and there's some mole, and he has to. So the whole thing gets started by there's a mole in the company that's selling our information to this Japanese company, and at a certain point, I forget exactly. I think it's about a half hour in, is that reveal. And then, like, later on, there's the reveal that he's been talking to people outside of the FBI. He's been telling people in his office that he's working with the FBI because he thinks it's cool. He calls himself 0014 because he's twice as smart as 007. And then there's the kickbacks, and that whole drama. But that wig thing comes pretty late in the reveal process. Yeah. But again, there's not one moment where everybody goes, oh, that's when he is outed as a liar, because you've seen him be exposed for a lie. You see him sitting in his car talking to the FBI and saying, hey, I can't talk right now, I'm at work, and stuff like that. So you know he's lying about stuff, but you don't know why and what he's covering up.
Yeah, the only other times that I could think of it being, and obviously I'm thinking back. And
sure.
It's like when he was on the phone and he was like, he kind of went quiet with the FBI for a while, and they were trying to get in touch with him, and he, all of a sudden, everything changed. And he was like, oh, they pulled me into the office, and they completely
never mind, the
restructured.
price fixing is done. Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's right. And then the FBI was like, well, hang on a minute. Like, we're not just going to let this go.
Yeah. Well, what's great, like going back to it being a Steven Soderbergh movie, Steven Soderbergh directed Aaron Brockovich. Steven Soderbergh, and then he directed another movie for Netflix called The Laundromat. That's also about like the little guy and the big messed up corporation that is taking advantage of random people. He directed Logan Lucky, which is like a heist movie about a guy who robs this corrupt NASCAR place or whatever to get back at somebody.
Yeah, I think that's what Daniel Craig and Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah,
is that right?
And Channing Tatum. But yeah, No Sudden Move is another one where it's like the villain is the American car industry. So he's like told a lot of stories about the little guy going up against the big corporation or the big corrupt thing, and then being at some level, whatever he does to fight those people is justified most of the time by the movie. So like Logan Lucky is an example of them like literally stealing a ton of money from people, but that's justified. It's okay in the movie's mind because, well, this place was corrupt and they were stealing stuff anyway. They were stealing stuff too. This money was stolen, so I guess it's okay if I do it.
Yep.
This is a movie where you've got this corrupt ADM who actually is robbing people, who actually is doing stuff that's illegal. And then you have Mark Whitaker, who is this guy who comes to the FBI saying, I'm going to be a whistleblower. I'm going to be an informant. I'm going to save I'm going to save the world from ADM. And essentially what you find out throughout the movie is that he's also stealing money. He's also like, he's lying to the FBI. He's going back on his word. He's doing things that the FBI, he's like contradicting himself in lots of ways. And so like the corruptness of the guy who is exposing the corruption is a really interesting back and forth between Steven Soderbergh's other work.
Yeah. That's really interesting that you brought up that kind of moral point, right? So like stealing is okay if the other person is worse than you.
Yeah. Right. I mean, he's the guy who directed the Ocean's 11 movies.
Right.
So
right.
it's
Which
the
is
same
the
kind of thing.
plot line. Yeah, that's right. That's super interesting. So I wrote down in my notes here, let's see if I can find it real quick here. So main plot points. So it was they kind of got to it. So the slow drip of like, okay, so he is this informant when they're in the, what is it? He's got some type of, it kind of looked like some type of like office space or man cave, kind of place in his house with the FBI. And they go to him and they say, okay, well, we want you to start recording tapes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wrote in my notes that like, that's the moment he became the informant. Right.
Yeah. Right.
And it's interesting to me that because so like this is based off of like loosely based off of like real events.
A true story. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So it's interesting to me that, and obviously I should have done a little bit more research on like the actual history of, the actual story.
Sure.
But it's interesting to me that the FBI didn't do any due diligence into him before just blindly trusting him.
Yeah. Well, and it's like there's obviously a trade-off. Like these guys are, from their perspective, they're getting this great information.
Yeah.
At least they think they are. And then even in that scene where you're talking about where they're like standing, he's leaning on the pool table or whatever. And they say like, you're moving up in this company. Mm-hmm. You're doing well here. Why are you doing this?
He's like, I just want to do the right thing.
Just want to do the right thing. And he says that, and then they try to clarify, and they say, so you see them as wearing black hats and you as wearing a white hat. He's like,
yep.
Yeah, basically so.
And he says it just like that. Yeah. And it's like super like nonchalant. Yeah. So
the great, and like credit to Matt Damon for being so like he does this kind of like aw shucks kind of his voice reminds me of like a Ron Howard voice. Mm-hmm. Like it just kind of a real chipper, well, I'm just here to help and happy to help out. They even they did something where they were working on like Matt Damon, this is a bizarre thing to point out, but Matt Damon has this really sharp pointed point on his nose, and they even rounded out his nose to make him look a little bit less threatening. So he just looked like this sort of doughy little guy from Illinois, just here to help out. Fly. Yeah, just here to help out.
Yeah. So so on that a little bit, I wondered if you knew anything about this. Do you think that chipper, I'm just here to help everybody kind of, persona had anything to do with some type of lack of like psychopathy or any type of like dampened emotion in order to spin those lies, and Matt Damon was portraying that? Or do you think that that was just more of the comedy or the comedic nature of the film?
Yeah. I don't know. It'd be interesting to like watch an interview with the actual Mark Whitaker. I think he's done plenty of stuff, but I don't know if I would invite him to like an event to speak.
Well, at the end of the movie, it said that he went back to being a COO after he got out of jail of some company.
Yeah, I think he does public speeches too now. I think you can like hire him to come out to your event. Yeah, but I don't know. Like, yeah, it definitely does it makes people let down their guard. So whether it's the audience who's like Matt Damon, whether it's Matt Damon making the audience let down their guard because, well, he's just a nice guy from Illinois here to expose corruption. You know, everybody's here, and anybody who's against me is just dumping on Mark Whitaker. You know, like that kind of guy. If anybody, so whether it's Matt Damon doing that to the audience or this guy actually having that temperament. Excuse me, knocked my microphone.
Oh, you're good.
But whichever one of those it is, it's achieves the same effect.
Yeah,
it blinds people at some level.
Yeah, I just didn't know if it was like in order to spin those lies, they were trying to portray the character more authentic. Because, you know, I don't know, like, I don't know, how do you just lie like that? That's what I was like, man, he doesn't stop.
Yeah, right.
You know, and it's there has to be something missing in the soul of a human in order to be able to go to those levels of deceit.
Yeah, oh, there is. And like the back and forth with so there's as I was talking about the Steven Soderbergh other movies that kind of make this an interesting exception. The way he thinks about stories in this, I mentioned the Tom Cruise thing earlier, but like he talks about at the beginning of it, the Michael Crichton novel Rising Sun, which is about these two Americans who go in and they, again, expose corruption in the Japanese business industry and some particular Japanese industry. And he also later on you see him sitting in a theater looking up, watching Tom Cruise in The Firm, and he's just mesmerized and he sees himself as, oh, I'm that guy. And you've got The Firm, which is this John Grisham novel turned into a Sidney Pollack movie about, again, like a callow, I'm just a callow recent law school grad. And then, I go into this terrible situation. I am the exposer of all this corruption. And so it all begins with this self-deceit of seeing himself as the hero of one of those kind of stories, which could be even a Steven Soderbergh movie. Oh, I'm Danny Ocean, or
I'm the savior.
Exactly, and anything that I do is justified because, I mean, have you seen how bad this corruption is here? It's an interesting back and forth because there's the John Grisham novel, the movie, and then Matt Damon was also in an adaptation of a John Grisham novel that was about a recent law school grad who goes and sees a bunch of corruption in this in the, like, I think it's the medical insurance industry, and so he sees all, and so he's perfect, of course. So he's this perfect central character who goes in and just is appalled by that anybody would do anything ever corrupt. But the fact that Matt Damon starred in The Rainmaker, and also there's just so many fun, like, intertextual elements that make this movie like a just, again, an exception and also a rebuke of maybe other movies, or at least a qualification on it, because the audience doesn't want to doubt their hero. They don't want to see this guy, oh, well, of course Tom Cruise is a perfect person, and of course Matt Damon in The Rainmaker is a perfect person. If he's not, then I can't live with myself, because it's much, much easier to deal with other people's corruption than it is to deal with your own. And so he's put in that position where anytime somebody tries to point out and this is true in The Informant, he's put in a position where anytime somebody tries to point out his own lying, he always points it back. The only reason I did that was because Mick Andreas taught me how to do kickbacks. The only reason that I ever did this was because somebody at ADM told me that I needed to lie about the guy hitting me with a briefcase. I don't remember who it was. At the end of the movie, he's talking about somebody at ADM told me to sue the FBI. I don't remember who it was. Maybe it was somebody. So like the obfuscation and the self-deception is the thing that allows him to keep deceiving other people because, I'm just the good guy. I'm just the white hat. And of course, nothing that I could do could ever be corrupted.
Right. So you have an interesting story when there isn't a hero.
Yeah, sure.
So let's talk about that for a second. So you said you don't it's not normal for a viewer watching a movie to not have a hero, and then before that to doubt the hero. So it's set up, it's presented as Mark Whitaker is the hero, like you've said. He's the white hat. He's gonna expose the evil corporation, and then the director did such a great job. The writing, taking you down this slow drip of okay, so that doubt, you start to feel it as you go down through the movie, and then at the end you're like, okay, so who's the hero?
Right. Well, I mean, as you were talking about that, I was thinking. You mentioned earlier, why didn't they vet this guy? It seems like the FBI would do that. Well, it's the same reason that the audience didn't vet him. So as we're watching it, we don't,
that's fair.
We just watched and some guy comes forward and says, "Hey, I'm here to expose corruption." We assume he's Tom Cruise in The Firm, right? Yeah. We assume, he's Danny Ocean. He must be there. Again, there must be nothing wrong with this person because
no one just makes that up.
Yeah, the big corruption is over there always. And if somebody's pointing out corruption, it's like the holiness of the. It's a perversion of the holiness of the victim, right? So he's a victim of the corruption, or at least he's here to expose it. So
we've all been there. You've been inspired by a new creative idea, but you've got 3 videos in the queue that need to be edited by the deadline. Or deciding to hire a full-time editor can feel like throwing money at the wall after salaries, benefits, and equipment. It could leave you frustrated and be a burden on your content schedule when editing stacks up. We want to help you bridge the gap. It's really simple. Log into your dashboard, sync cloud drives, and send us your raw files. And we'll do the rest. Worried about the final cut? With our 2 unlimited plans, you don't have to worry about revisions. We'll do it until it's right. We keep you in the driver's seat as content creation depicts the creator. Log into your project management dashboard via Notion for direct, instant communication and watch your project reach each phase of editing until completion. You create, and we just do the work. Vindicated Productions, removing the burden from content creation.
All the bad stuff must be outside of him. And so the audience just listens along and goes, okay, well, I guess this is the new Aaron Brockovich. Okay, cool. Thank you. I guess, or you're watching and you assume, this is Aaron Brockovich, but with corn or something. But no, it's actually a different, making a different kind of statement.
Aaron Brockovich with corn. That's funny. So can we point to a hero in this movie?
I don't think you're supposed to. I mean, this movie kind of does a really good bait and switch where at the end of the movie, you're not you don't feel satisfaction, but you do at some level you do. I mean, you see Mark Whitaker sitting in prison, having been there for years. But what happens is you have this, you have the thing where it plays at the end, the kind of curtain call where you see where everybody went and what happened. Mm-hmm. But the ADM guys that he signed up to expose and went to the FBI to expose got 3 years in prison. Yep. He did, I think, 9 years in prison. And so at the end, what you have is the guy who was supposed to be your hero is not. It's not like a reverse. It's not a lazy he's actually the villain and ADM is the heroes. It's that they're bad and he is bad too. and because of the way because he kept digging that hole, he ends up not being. It's not, like I said, it's not the postmodern. We take Cruella de Vil and turn her into, actually she was misunderstood.
Yeah.
So it's not that, but it is. So that would give you another hero. That would give you, well, never mind, ADM's the hero. But it doesn't give you that kind of satisfaction, but it does give you like punishment for Mark Whitaker, and it gives you punishment for ADM, which is what happened in real life. And so I don't know, like Aaron Brockovich was also based on a true story, but we assume again that we're watching Aaron Brockovich, she must be actually a perfect person. There must be nothing wrong with her. And so I don't know. I guess this one, because the book that was written about it, that's also called The Informant, was pretty open about his lies and and does the same kind of reveal thing throughout it. They just adapted that to the movie. And it's what's interesting to me. I mean, you talked about the comedic elements. Like as they're trying to adapt this, I wonder when the decision was to make it a comedy. You know, because like
that would be. I would like to know that.
Yeah, you could tell this story in a like as a serious drama where whatever, but there's something almost. I don't know. I'd love to read. I haven't read the actual book, but I've read interviews about it, and heard Steven Soderbergh talk about the book, and so the structure of it. But I would love to know how that was in real life.
Yeah, because I don't think it would have landed as well. I think it would have, because if you go dramatic, it gets too boring.
Right. And it's like, it's corn, so it sounds silly. And it's this kind of doughy,
I don't know if you could take it. So it's
guy.
weird. It's weird where you have to make it slightly comedic in order to take it seriously.
Yeah.
Because if you are too serious, then then it becomes the whole thing is a comedy. It's just dumb, right?
Yeah. And by the end, you can't really make this like, this guy who's constantly lying and who's like hiding that he's bald and like that he's hiding everything about his life. You can't take that guy utterly seriously.
Right.
The problem with a lot of what happens in the movie is that people do just take him seriously, just based on just the information, and that he's pointing to a worse bad guy who he sees as a worse bad guy. I'd love to know that. I'm sure somebody's done some interview somewhere. I'll have to listen to. So Scott Z. Burns is the screenwriter. I'll have to look up an interview with him or Soderbergh. But.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to try something here, and I'm thinking about this in real time. So it may not pan out.
Go ahead.
But I think I have an idea of who the real hero is.
Okay.
But it's also the biggest victim.
Okay.
The wife.
Okay.
So
go ahead.
So the wife throughout the entire film. Now the only I guess Achilles heel here is I'm still a little undecided if she was aware of all of the lies.
Sure.
Because I'm not sure. It seemed as if she was not aware of the lies throughout the film, right?
Yeah.
Because the entire time, like from the rip, it was tell the FBI the truth, tell the FBI the truth,
right.
and then towards the end, she said, "Why are you doing this to yourself?"
Mm-hmm.
So those are making me in the world of the movie. If I take the movie for what it is, not adding anything else externally like the book or anything that happened after the movie was made. She was the biggest victim because she was the one that was lied to the most because of it being her husband. And then she loses her husband, he goes to jail, and then at the very end, what does she do? She forgives him and she stays with him and she stays loyal to him, right? Now, again, I don't know. He gets out of prison, and then I don't know if they got divorced later, but from the end credits and prior, I would say that out of the entire movie, because she forgives her husband for all of the sins that he committed, she would be the hero. Okay.
Well, it also could be that she's just kind of airheaded.
That's right.
So like there's a sense in which like. Because she had a separate bank account that, like, this is in the movie. She had a separate bank account that he was depositing tons of money into. That so why would he be getting money from work through her account? And surely she must have been aware of that if it was her account, unless Mark created it. And she was also aware that they had 8 cars and never drove.
They only
3
drove
of them.
2, or 3, or whatever it was.
There's 3 that they didn't touch. It was that was the So like she knew that things were weird, and within the movie again, either decided not to look into it or something. So like it could be, or was just sort of airheaded about the whole thing, which is entirely possible. Because like
it's very possible.
If you're Mark Whitaker and you're looking for somebody to marry, you want somebody who's really easy to deceive, and is really impressed by you and thinks that. But she does go along with him for sure in terms of like, because he says the phrase "dump on Mark." Oh, this is all just dump on Mark Whitaker. Everything they did to Tom Cruise, they do to me. And then she repeats the exact phrase. Oh, this is all just it's dump on Mark Whitaker. Dump on Mark Whitaker. And so like she goes along with it, is being led poorly, obviously, but. I don't want to remove accountability from her for her for her involvement as there was some, but I don't know. Like maybe it's just the cynic in me who looks
I mean, I've got one of those in me too. I was really trying to hold on to a positive.
Maybe somebody. Yeah. Well, and this is another big point. The only people who are seen as reasonable and really trying to help is the FBI.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
Yeah.
So like the FBI are like the moral
We're the government.
consciences.
We're here to help.
Yeah. So like, and like the idea, the way that this movie falls apart outside of the movie. If you don't know if this is your only experience of planet Earth, then you would think that the FBI is the best. But that's not true. And so you don't get the Scott Bakula character or the Joel McHale character lying about anything, trying to hide anything, though that certainly happens. And
dude,
definitely
I'll tell you,
with the FBI.
I got super uneasy when they were telling him, okay, so people are going to know that, so not the mole that, I don't think it was the mole that Mark created.
Okay.
But when they were telling him like, don't take ADM's lawyers, get your own lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
In my head, I was like, "Oh, do you trust their counsel? Like,
right.
Are they going to hang this guy out to dry, or
are
they actually trying to help him and not get?" And then he ended up doing it. So it's like that.
It's a bizarre movie where like, and again, like, if you're just looking inside the movie, then it looks like the FBI is great and lawyers are the best people in the world who are just trying to make the best of a bad situation. And that's not true. So like, it's like, that's a huge weakness of Steven Soderbergh. And like it shows up in his movie, the movie Contagion, the whole movie. Have you seen Contagion?
That's a great movie.
Okay.
I actually really like that movie.
It's a cool movie, but like the weakness of it is
I watched it for the first time 3 weeks before COVID.
Oh, wow. Okay. Most people watched it right after that whole thing happened. But yeah, like that movie, the best people in the world are the doctors and the WHO, and they would surely never do anything to hurt anybody. Again, like within the movie, you can believe this fantasy about reality. But what that actually does weaken your immune system when you run into, weaken your immune system when you run into like real corruption in those industries. So like, the movie has to pick one target, I guess. But then it's it then has to have 2 targets, so ADM and Mark Whitaker. But it would have been, I don't know, maybe it would have been interesting to have a 3rd target at the FBI and then the lawyers as well. But maybe that would make the viewer too uncomfortable. Maybe it would there'd be too much of reality right in your face, and it might make the whole thing swell into like a Tom Wolfe novel that's 700 pages about how everybody's corrupt and trying to use each other. Yeah,
because in the scenes where, to kind of prove your point, you have the 2 FBI agents that are like, he gave us everything, the entire case is built on him, and then you've got that one lady that's like, nope, you don't have enough evidence. And I don't actually believe that it's like, I'm sure it happens, but just the idea of like the FBI saying, no, we don't have enough. We don't have enough to get him yet.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, it's a strange thing, yeah, to look into, because I mean, like Steven Soderbergh's a big flaming lib, but like, and we know that, but like, it's funny to look into their psychology and know that even in this movie, you can acknowledge the corruption of ADM, the business, and the corruption of the individual within the business. Okay, that's acceptable for the movie, but there are there's other corruption that you just don't want to touch, and that's ugly. So you can tell, like in the movie, it tells true things about how businesses take advantage of people, and how people can take advantage of businesses and other people and lie and deceive. So that's like a true thing that is very rarely said about there's corruption even in the person who's exposing corruption. But yeah, if you push that again too far. And by too far, I just mean like as far as it is in reality, then the thing swells. So it becomes a mini series, or it becomes a TV show, or again a 700-page Tom Wolfe novel.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, because so that's what we say on our show all the time, is that every movie ever made is structured in a way that if you pull the eternal truths out of the structure, the plot and any coherent story falls apart. And Hollywood, being secular, can't justify even their own movies, because they borrow from our worldview in order to hold the narrative up to Trojan horse, a secular, Marxist, whatever, liberal ideology within that. So it's a super interesting thing. And when we watch movies, we want people to watch them watch them actively, to combat that passive consumption, because when you turn I'll use your word, your immune system off, it's just indoctrination at that point, and you don't defend as well.
Yeah.
So
I was talking. I was listening to to an interview that Steven Soderbergh did about Contagion, to further emphasize that point, to your point. And he talked about the Contagion movie as if he said that somebody asked him, like, how did it go? How did the actual pandemic go compared to your movie? The movie came out in 2011, and he said something like, well, we didn't realize how bad the response could be. And we didn't realize also, somebody who was one of the advisors on the movie said, well, really, COVID is worse. Excuse me. And if we're because we're on YouTube, I'll say COVID was the worst thing that ever happened to any person ever. But COVID was much worse than whatever we came up with in Contagion. But there's a certain point at which you just got to know, okay, well, and people were watching Contagion. People were watching The Stand, or reading The Stand. People were reading just everything they could get their hands on about mass outbreaks. And that was their way of trying to interpret what was actually going on. And the people who read those things and watched those things were responding to the 2020 unfortunate events as if that was happening, as if The Stand was happening, or as if Contagion was happening. And I'm sorry again for mentioning the coronavirus on your channel.
You're fine. We've said it before.
Okay. All right. Okay. So we're good.
We're pretty real around here. Real and laid back. That's kind of what we do.
Great.
Okay. So I guess we've talked about the entire film. We've kind of talked about, pointing to eternal truths within a story. We've kind of pulled apart, Soderbergh is more of a liberal, maybe not so much more a liberal, or just is.
Sure.
Let's see here. I'm just going through my notes here. Ultimately, like, if we're going to look at like the Bible and we're going to point to those eternal truths, I would just say simply, the verses, I have a whole bunch of verses here. I'm not going to go through all of them, but ultimately, like, don't lie.
That's in there somewhere. That's like, what I've heard.
Just don't lie.
Yeah.
And most importantly, don't don't, like, you know, in Romans it says, you know, you exchange the lie for, or the truth for the lie, right?
Yeah.
It's like, that self-deceit is what's most destructive.
Yeah.
Because he was believing in crafting his own story. And I think to some degree it was this idea of ambition in exchange for my integrity.
Yeah.
Because towards
Yeah.
the end, we started to see a little bit more of his motive. So, like, you know, the white hat scene that we were talking about, where I just want to do the right thing. Well, then towards the end, he's talking to his wife, and he's like, "Oh, they're gonna make me CEO or whatever of ADM."
Mm-hmm.
So that, you know, I want to get rid of the top guys with, you know, my deceit, you know, and lies, so that I can then take their place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, and like there's one of the great directors still alive, and I hope he does more before he goes, but his name is David Mamet. So David Mamet had this great quote that was, always tell the truth. It's the easiest thing to remember. And so you see in this movie in particular, the scene where there's a letter from his psychiatrist that he made up. So he faked a letter from his psychiatrist. We'll talk about the psychiatry piece. That's a whole other really interesting piece of this movie. But as he's talking about the psychiatry, the fake letter to the psychiatrist, you hear that monologue, the monologue that you've been hearing the whole time, turn into him coming up with the lies on the spot, or coming up with the justifications on the spot. And so you as the viewer are then led in on his internal process of coming up with the excuse, and so it's almost like he gets interrupted, like, and then the last thing he gets interrupted with in that scene is Scott Bakula saying, "Stop lying."
That's right.
And so, like, it really turns out to be that simple. But if he suddenly stopped lying, I mean, like, at the end, what's great, a great moment at the end where he says something about, like, he let slip the number $11.5 million. So, like,
I thought it was 9.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, as soon as they started talking about it, he admitted at the beginning to stealing $1.5 million. That was the first number you heard. I wrote him down. So, and then it's 5 million at some point, and then it's 7.7 million at some point, and it's 9 million, and then at the very end, he says he let slip, or like just conversationally, accidentally says 11.5, and then the Joel McHale character says, "I thought it was 9." And he says, "I don't know. You tell me."
That's so good.
And it's like, it may be true that he doesn't know.
Yeah.
Like, that's what the point is about self-deception. Like, he may actually not know how much he did, because he's that voice in his head that's constantly been telling him how to justify stuff and how to hide stuff. Maybe when he said 1.5 million, he might have had to bring himself to believe 1.5 million.
Right.
Yeah, it's a.
You tell me.
Yeah,
that was such a good.
I don't know.
Good writing though. It was. I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's so good. And,
okay,
and Matt Damon, like, the fact that handsome actor Matt Damon decided to totally frump it up for this role is a tribute to his commitment. Frump it up for this, like, low budget role. He shaved his head, had a fake, and there was, I think somebody said, I think it was the costume designer, was getting off an airplane at the same time that Matt Damon was. And she's walking, and this guy walks behind her. They're arriving at set in Decatur, Illinois. And so this guy's walking behind her, kind of frumpy looking bald guy. And then, and then she turns and realizes, oh, that's Matt Damon. And so, like, she said, "This movie's going to work. I think this movie is actually going to work."
That's so funny.
I think it was the costume designer who was in that interaction, was just like, I think, the vibe is here.
That's so good. That's good. Okay, so
one more. Yeah, no, we'll talk about psychology. I'm free associating, but another thing that they talked about, I watched the commentary for this, and they talked about how much Abraham Lincoln pops up in this. So, like, if you watch the set decoration, there's a lot of Abraham Lincoln.
The whole Honest Abe thing.
And so, like, you've got busts in people's offices of Abraham Lincoln. It's in Illinois, right? It's the land of Lincoln. That's what it's known for. And what they said when they were coming into this was that it wasn't a theme in the script. Abraham Lincoln wasn't part of this at all. But when they got to a lot of these buildings, they saw Abraham Lincoln everywhere.
Oh, that's so
and so
interesting.
they thought like it actually was part of Illinois culture to just have Abraham Lincoln everywhere. And so they were like, it works. It actually fits in with the movie. Psychiatry. So and now again I need to tie off stuff better.
No, you're good, man. This is how we roll. We just go. We like talking about movies.
Good. I like talking about movies too. But the psychiatry piece, that's almost his last ditch. Here's why I've been lying this whole time, or here's why everything really happened. Is he goes to a psychiatrist, tries to get diagnosed with bipolar, and then is successfully diagnosed with bipolar. And I think like lies himself into so he says, have you ever been diagnosed by any family members diagnosed with bipolar? And he says, I had an aunt that I think they said that about. And you're like, as the viewer, you're going, no, no, he didn't. In the same way that he lied about being adopted and his parents dying in a car accident. It's like, I don't believe anything this guy says. So anyway, probably lied himself into some kind of diagnosis, and then uses that diagnosis as his bargaining chip in court with his personal injury lawyer guy in a Hawaiian shirt, and so the judge at the end says the court has determined that that Mr. Whitaker's bipolar disorder diagnosis has nothing to do with his stealing $9 million from ADM. And
see those little punchlines, like they worked on me. I loved them. You know, the one where oh shoot, now it's gonna escape me. So he's going they're the FBI, or maybe it's the lawyers for ADM are going through all of their own, or they're doing their own investigation, and they're going back to all the other lawyers that set up businesses.
Yes.
And the one guy talks about, like, what was it, the Asian scam or whatever it was, and then he sits up and he goes, "This is embarrassing," because he's the guy that fell for it.
Right.
I like that one too. That was really funny.
Well,
so they just did a really good job at those little punchline.
Yes, absolutely. And like, it's not a like fall out of your chair laughing movie. Like, I'm sure that but like after you watch it, you go like, that was really funny.
Yeah, it's like it's
that was
like
a funny
perfect
movie. And part of that, Soderbergh, as he was casting this movie, hired a bunch of comedians in these acting roles. So like the Smothers Brothers are in this movie, one as the head of ADM and the other as the judge at the end. So Smothers Brothers from the Comedy Hour in 1960s. Who cares? Why?
Dude, I love it.
So Smothers Brothers are in this. Paul F. Tompkins is in Tom Papa, and Andy. Oh gosh, I'm running out of names here. But anyway, so like as you're watching, Scott Adsit, the guy who says this is embarrassing, or like leans on the guy, or the guy who gets leaned on, Scott Adsit in 30 Rock. These comedic actors, mostly improv trained or stand-ups, he hired them partly for the comedic effect of the movie because they knew they could make it work. But also he said he called his casting director and asked for stand-ups and for comic actors because stand-ups have to have personality themselves. And so he thought, like, I didn't want actor types who could kind of be chameleons. He said I wanted people to kind of bring their comedic self, even if they weren't delivering punchlines, into this. For some reason, it's really bothering me that I can't remember one of their names, but who cares? But yeah, like I said, it's not.
As soon as we hop off the podcast, you'll look it up and you'll send it to me.
I'll yell it at a random point. That's
so great. That's so great. We often say we really, really love it when we can find people that do our podcast better than us. It's so great. Keith Foskey's one of them. He comes on here, man. You get him talking about movies, man. He goes all the way back to the 80s and Superman 78. And it's great. It's a great time, man.
That's fun.
We like finding movie buffs, and it's so interesting, and that's one of the reasons why I love this, is because everybody's got their own little movie buff niche, and they like their own thing, right? It's kind of like their own little personality within, you know, the world of cinema. And it's fun to talk to people.
Well, there's a reason, like that used to be a standard like first date kind of question, you know, like what kind of movies do you like? And then like by the end of the conversation, be like, oh, I do not relate to that person at all.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like even if they like a movie you didn't like, you want to know why. You'd be like,
yeah, now you can
like,
do it with politics.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. I'm sure that's great. The first date.
Yeah.
Like, so Trump 2020, right? 2024. Was 2020 stolen? That's
I think I posted
line.
something about the whatever they're calling it now, the Tesla in front of Trump Towers blowing up.
Right. Yeah.
And I was like, if you want to find somebody's political affiliation, play them this video and watch their reaction.
Yeah.
And you know immediately.
Yeah. Boy.
It's crazy. But did we talked about the psychiatry, right?
Yeah.
So we hit that up. I think we did. Okay. I'm just trying to remember everything. Sometimes I forget.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think we covered it, man.
Cool.
Thanks for coming. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I appreciate your patience. You know, we had a rough go there for a while and we had to reschedule a couple of times. So I really appreciate you working with us on that. I'm kind of bummed that my co-host didn't get to meet you. So just so you know, my co-host is also my cousin.
Okay.
So,
very fun.
So yeah, I'm kind of bummed he didn't get to meet you. That's pretty fun. And I'm sure you know that you're welcome back anytime you want. It's a lot of fun. Whenever you want to talk about a movie, just let me know.
Absolutely. Happy to do it, man.
Yeah.
Sounds fun.
Real quick, one more time, tell everybody all about your stuff, anything that you're working on, you want them to know.
Yeah.
And then we'll get out of here.
Cool. Wade Show with Wade on YouTube. I'm on X at Wade Stotz. And check out canonplus.com. That's where I do my podcast. I also have a promo code for Canon Plus, Wade99, get you your first month for 99 cents. And that's where my podcast is, but it's also home to a ton of cool stuff. We're just about to release the first season of The Ride and the Dance on there, and I did an interview with the director and editor and the cinematographers and all those guys. Just talking about cool stuff. So we're trying to make that. We're trying to build that whole platform out, and I think it's become a really cool hub for folks.
Yeah, we had Canon Plus for quite a while actually. So my 3-year-old, we're planning on homeschooling him and
cool.
our other kids, and so Canon Plus is really cool. So like when you have the books on there, like the audio books. Mm-hmm. I think we kind of started it a little too young, but what we would do is when my 3-year-old was just he could barely sound out like letters and stuff, right? And like words. So he's just learning. But what we would do is we would get the audiobooks, and instead of letting him watch shows, we would connect headphones and let him listen to the audiobooks.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was like really like helping his speech and his
fun.
Imagination and creativity and stuff. Instead of just
we put it on a Bluetooth speaker around the house and people listen while they're doing stuff or playing.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I'd recommend people going out there and signing up. And then also don't forget Dangerous Friends, March 13th and 14th. You've got speakers like Rosario Butterfield, Steve Deese, Jamie Bambrick, the whole crew, Michael Foster, Seth Gruber. Dangerous Friends 25 for tickets. Watch Well 25 for $25 off. Watch Well, one word, 2 capital W's for $25 off. And I really hope to see you there. We're going to have Keith Foskey there. Greg Moore from Dead Men Walking's coming. We've got Corey from Civically Minded. We've got Brandon Woods from Eschatology Matters. All of us are going to be there. Come talk to me about movies and make some dangerous friends. All right, guys, we'll see you in the next one.